Remember, knowledge is not free. You have to pay attention.
You're watching Past the Wire TV.
Big horse, but light on his feet. And he's always showed up and been consistent and been right there with some of the top horses in training. In the Bluegrass Stakes, he showed his determination and his raw ability.
It's over! Zandon wins the Toyota Bluegrass!
I feel breeders will be really blown away by what a striking, outstanding looking horse he is.
Thank you for visiting Past the Wire TV, the YouTube channel of PastTheWire.com. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Past the Wire TV. Today, I am joined by the 2-year-old edge man himself, known for picking winner after winner in 2-year-old baby races, as I like to call them. And first off, Shane, thank you so much for joining me on the show. You are a regular contributor to Pass the Wire, so I'm very familiar with you and your work. But I think this is great timing because, at least for me, I know Keeneland is a fantastic meet for 2-year-olds, but and I would argue that Keeneland in the spring is as premier of a meet as we have in horse racing right now. Where 30 years ago, I would have argued hands down it was Saratoga. But when it comes to 2-year-olds, I got to give the nod to Saratoga because there's more races, there's more different barns. Wesley Ward doesn't dominate like he does at Keeneland, and there are much better 2-year-old betting opportunities at the Spa than I think at any meet maybe in the world.
Completely agree. Yeah, no, I have a soft spot for Keeneland growing up in Louisville there just down the road, but you're exactly right, John. I mean, they only run about 9 or 10 2-year-old races. Because they're only open up, it's a short meet. Certainly Saratoga's short, but it's gotten, I think, 7 weeks now instead of what it used to be. What was it, 4 back?
Yeah. It went from the August place. Yeah, it went from the August place.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
To the whole summer place to be.
Yeah, yeah, good point. Yeah, no, it's gotten a lot longer, and you're exactly right. A lot of these barns don't want to run their 2-year-olds in April, and that makes sense, right? And it's certainly become a Wesley Ward show at Keeneland. So you're spot on when you say that there's a lot more barns, a lot more opportunities. Certainly Fletcher and a few others really kind of do extremely well at Saratoga, but it's nothing like what Ward does at Keeneland in the spring. It's crazy. The percentage he hits at, I think it's over 40%.
And, yeah, and just not only does he dominate, but there's not really a lot of powerhouse competition going after him. Where at Saratoga, you see, you got half a dozen powerhouse stables in a lot of those baby races. So, it's a lot tougher to dominate there. Now you have an affinity and a preference for betting 2-year-olds. I love betting 2-year-olds, and I'm curious if the reason is the same. I believe that when you have less information at your public fingertips, so to speak, okay? Got a bunch of first-time starters. You got a bunch of horses that ran once or twice. You got horses sometimes, going, with one start on the dirt onto the grass, or you just don't have an array of past performances and things to decipher. Less information, I think, gives an edge to those that are very astute and, lack of a better term, not to be redundant, students of the game, and pick up on things that the average person might not know or does not jump out at you in the past performances. And I can give you examples of some of those things later. But is that why you gravitate to those races as well?
Yeah, That's certainly one of the reasons, John. Yeah, you're exactly right. I think most players, you not included, but most players are afraid of the 2-year-old races, and they just either stay away or they make really stupid bets, right? Because they don't know what they're doing. It's a different game. To your point, there's a lot of first timers. There's not many past performance lines, right? So people are like, well, how do you play this, right? So they either stay away or they don't do real well with it. It's just a lot of different factors. Pedigree is so much more important, and that's one of the reasons I gravitate to it. It used to, when I was a young kid, real young kid in my teens and preteens, I, for some reason, kind of fell in love with the bloodlines and the pedigrees. So it's certainly more prevalent in the 2-year-old space, and just a lot of different factors. A lot of unknowns, frankly, but I think you can get an edge on others by really focusing on it, and that's what I do.
Another thing that Shane attracts me to those races is, a lot of players will hang their hats on statistics, and they'll look at a stat where, oh, this guy wins, 20% with 2-year-olds, he's great. Or this guy only wins 10% with 2-year-olds, he's terrible. Or 8% with 2-year-olds, or 5%, he's terrible. And I think when it comes to 2-year-olds, more so than others, I think it's also a deceptive danger in other races. But in 2-year-olds, it can be particularly dangerous. And I'll tell you why. I have found that certain trainers with high percentage wins with 2-year-olds, if you look and isolate certain factors, certain workout patterns, certain workout times, certain workout spacings, their percentages either drop dramatically or increase dramatically. And, there was a trainer years ago that had a reputation as never winning with first-time starters. And I was like, that's not true. He's got a bad percentage with first-time starters, but when he works them 5/8 in less than a minute, he's about 40%, and he doesn't work many that way. And I don't want to broadcast who it is because it's an edge, when you know something like that. But you go on, keep thinking he doesn't win with first-time starters, but, the 6 that he runs that, work this way, 5 of them are going to win. You know what I mean? And the one that doesn't just ran into a buzzsaw. And what are you going to do? That's always a danger in the baby races. So people tend to fall in love with those stats that can be deceptive if you don't go deeper into them and just take them at face value. Thoughts?
You hit it right on the head again, John. There's no doubt about it. I mean, certainly you need to look at trainer percentage, right? But what I do is it's not just trainer percentage, because a lot of times those 2-year-old maiden special weight races will get wrapped up in just maiden races. So you'll include the 3-year-olds, and I think that's a little, it can be a little deceptive when you bake that in. It also potentially bakes in claiming races, which I think really changes the game. So what I do is really stay focused on the numbers. I don't rely specifically on trainer stats, but it's certainly one of the things I do look at. I start with what I look at those stats at the specific track and the specific meet that's going on. I mean, you look at Wesley Ward. A lot of people say, oh, he's just a fabulous trainer of 2-year-olds. He wins 50%, and they think it's wherever he runs, and that's just not the case. He
Right.
slays Keeneland like we talked about in the spring, but he doesn't do so in the fall at Keeneland. He doesn't do so much at Churchill Downs. He doesn't even do so much at Belmont. Now, he does better than average.
Right.
Certainly, but he's not, almost a sure win like he is at Keeneland, or as close to it as you can get, right, in the spring. So you got to be careful. You're exactly right. You got to be careful with those stats. I think you do need to look at them, but you need to really make them specific to where the horse is running, and like you said, bake in how they're working their horse. What sires, what dams, what bloodlines, are into play there. You can't just look at it as simple trainer stat and say, okay, this is the one. The other thing, you're not going to get much money on you're not going to get, the odds are typically very low with a Chad Brown or a Todd Fletcher at Saratoga, right?
Right.
They're just over bet. So those may be ones to stay away from. When you start taking return on investment into the equation, you got to do that as well. So you're right. You said it perfectly. You got to go deeper, and that's what we do. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, but it's rewarding.
But,
and when
it's important to do, and I just don't think many people would.
Yeah, and when you have those situations, Shane, where you have to put in that extra time, there's only a handful of people that are going to do it. So that separates you from them and gives you an edge. And I think one of the reasons that your column has grown in popularity and the amount of edgies out there have increased and look forward to your work is because I think they know you put that time in and the results show.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah, I do. And I put all the time into the 2-year-old maiden special weight races. Yes, I'll definitely follow the classics, the Belmont just finishing up, right? But, Breeders' Cup brings a certain, but outside of the classics and the Breeders' Cup, I don't hardly look at a race other than a baby race. Yeah. I just don't. And
right.
The other thing I'd say, John, in general, certainly you excluded from this comment, and guys like Gio excluded from this comment. But I think in general, and I don't mean this demeaningly, but I think handicappers can get lazy, right? They don't put in the time that it needs and it deserves. And we're all busy, right? We all got lots to do outside of the game. So very few people even have the time to spend it if they want to focus on the. It's easier to get lazy. So.
Right. I agree. And
I think that's a huge differential.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that's a big part of why certain people can be successful. You have to capitalize on those areas and those edges, so to speak, when other people aren't gonna put in the time and do the work. One of the most frustrating things to me is looking at a race, and I'll always look at a race that I wagered after and I lost and say, what did I do wrong? What did I miss? What could I have done better? And sometimes the answer is nothing. You were just wrong, But sometimes the answer is, well, I kind of missed this. I didn't emphasize that. That's the worst feeling in the world to me. I feel like I beat myself, and it's tough enough to win at this game when you do things right. So when you make a mistake or overlook something, which happens when you don't put in the time and the work, it's extremely frustrating. Shane, when did you first gravitate to the 2-year-olds like that?
Yeah, it was young. I mean, I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, so I was always out at Churchill Downs. I'd skip school, the whole 9 yards. I'm sure you might have done that once or twice to get out to the track. But I had no money. What kid has any money? I was lucky to have $10 in my pocket. So I realized early on, you can't bet every race and be successful. So having that passion, like I mentioned earlier, for bloodlines and pedigrees, it kind of naturally made me gravitate towards the babies. And the more I got into it, the more I liked it. So it really started at an extremely young age. I was probably, literally 12 or 13 years old. I've always loved the Derby, and now I always will love the Derby. That'll always be, a big place. But again, I didn't have money to bet every race anywhere near, even at $2 a race. So, I think it is important to specialize and be really good at something. A lot of people say, Shane, that's I would agree with you, but you kind of overdo it and you over specialize, and that's fine. That's their opinion. But this is what I like. And I think people are successful in life, when they have a passion for it. And and it just makes sense on so many different angles. But it started young, John. Started really young. Too young, probably.
I agree, and I think well, you wrote a book. Okay, we'll talk a little bit about that, but let's lead into that by tying it into the recent Belmont Stakes winner. On the cover of your book is Dornoch.
Right.
And obviously that's a horse you had good thoughts about early on because you put him on the cover of your book. And to the contrary, I didn't. I was not a Dornoch fan. I didn't think he was going to win the Belmont Stakes. I didn't think he was going to win the Derby. And I kind of liked him early on. I wasn't impressed in the Fountain of Youth in Florida. I was there that day, and I kind of jumped off his bandwagon and never jumped back on. But you stuck with him and liked him early on. What is it that initially drew you to Dornoch?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious thing is the full brother, to being a full brother to Mage, and a good friend of yours and a good friend of the show, I know, is Ramiro, who had ownership in Mage. So I had an opportunity to meet him up at Saratoga last summer. Just a hell of a nice guy. So I see this full brother to his horse, if you will. I actually saw Dornoch when I was up in Saratoga. He didn't win that day. I think his next out, he won at Keeneland, and that's what's pictured on the cover of my book was his initial victory at Keeneland. So, he looked like he could be something special, and then, of course, he ran in that Remsen, and that may have been the race of the year. With him in Sierra Leone, right? I mean, it was just a ding dong battle, and then he comes back on the rail. I mean, you know better than I, John. You don't see a horse come back like that, especially he was down almost a full length. He got past, and then he just dug back in. And you just don't see many horses do that, much less 2-year-olds. So
I'm trying to think.
Right, sent the book to press.
You may know the answer.
But then I'm really like, this. Yeah.
You may know the answer to this question. I don't off the top of my head, but have we ever had two full brothers win classics like that? Back-to-back years?
It's so funny you say that, John, because I was thinking that yesterday. I almost put it on Twitter or on X just to see if anybody knew for sure. I don't think so. If it has been, I don't think so. Not full brothers, obviously, and I'm not even sure if there's been half brothers that have, with the same home.
None jumped out.
It was a
memory, and I think that's the kind of thing I would remember.
Exactly. I don't think so, John. If it does, I hope somebody sends us a comment and said it happened in 1912 or whatever. I don't think so, but it might have.
Yeah.
A lot of classics.
So when did you decide to write a book about this? When did you decide to write a book?
Well, that's last year. I started piddling with it. I put together, I'd written a number of different one-off articles, and I thought, you know what, it would be cool to write a book, and I just was intimidated by how hard it might be to do it, but I didn't let that. I didn't let that stop me. I just kept pulling information together. I kept putting together contents, and it came together. So I started early last year, and I finished up late in the year, and then I finally got it all together and got it pressed mid-January. Amazon makes it relatively easy to do and relatively inexpensive to do. I didn't want to put a bunch of money into it. I didn't have to. So yeah, it was about a year ago right now. Well, it was probably April or May of last year, and then I finished it up in December and got it published
Interesting.
In January.
How's your feedback been? People like it? I know. I watch the edgy columns grow and grow and grow. People look for your stuff. The Silks people love you when you talk about their horses.
Sure. Yeah. it has been popular with obviously with the people that like it. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback on it. People have said it's puts forward a lot of things that they haven't thought about. I've tried to be creative with it too, because everybody knows pedigree, everybody knows trainers and so forth. But one thing I'll mention that I didn't get in that book, and I want to do an update to it possibly. But I have always wanted to work in crosses, and I wanted to figure out how to best work the cross between a sire and a dam. Both are important, but when they're put together, how does that work? So I started putting together numbers earlier this year, and I call it micking, which is just the form of nicking, obviously, but for maidens. So I just look at 2-year-olds, the statistics of the cross for 2-year-olds in maiden special weight races. Now the problem is the numbers get kind of narrow, right? But still working on that. But that kind of pulls together both sides of the pedigree, right? And that that everybody knows the sire line and knows that's important. And they know, Into Mischief, and they know Nyquist, and they know, Curlin, all the good sires, right? But that dam side's important. But then let's put them both together. So working on that. So it's something to, keep me out of trouble and keep me busy and look forward to. So be on the lookout for micking patterns coming out, fairly soon.
Well, let me put you on the spot a little bit and get your expertise out there. Who are some of the young, under the radar sires that you think are going to produce precocious 2-year-olds that are going to be winning early and people are going to be cashing tickets on at the windows?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, everybody knows about Into Mischief, right? Into Mischief. He's got one running Friday, by the way. That could be a monster at Churchill Downs. But anyway, under the radar, it might not be fair to say Bolt the Oro's under the radar. I don't know that name would roll off everybody's tongue when they talk about good, precocious 2-year-old sires. Of course, he's a spendthrift sire. Spendthrift's been on fire in the last 3 years in this space. But I mean, he really would be my number one kind of under the radar. People don't talk about him, at least from what I hear, as much as others. He'd be my number one under the radar.
Who was that you said? I missed it. I'm sorry. Our Wi-Fi is not the best.
I'm sorry, John. Bolt the Oro.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Bolt the Oro, the spendthrift sire. I guess this is his third crop this year, if I've got my math right here. But yeah, maybe somebody would say, Shane, he's one that everybody knows, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think people look at him, and I don't think it jumps off the page. He'd be the one I would pick as an under the, and then of course you've got the first year sires,
right?
So freshman sires this year, John. And I did a piece that ran on Past the Wire back in March, I think. But there's a lot of interesting freshman sires this year. I put McKinsey at the top of my freshman sire list when I was looking at him for this year. He's yet to win, but he's only had 4 starters. I think he's going to come on strong. But Vacoma actually has 4 wins. He's leading the pack. It's early, obviously, with 11th, but
right.
He's had 4 winners and only 5 starters, and he's a spendthrift sire. So, spendthrift over the last couple of years really have been killing it. One other mention of spendthrift is, I don't know if your listeners know that they had the top 4 sires, freshman sires last year, if you count them by number of winners. And that's how I count them. I mean, once you start counting dollars, which is how most people count them, that's fine. But it can kind of get skewed, right? If you get one horse that wins a very expensive stakes race, I don't know that makes a sire necessarily better. So I look for the number of winners. Again, that's just me. Do it however you want. But they have the top 4, which is probably unprecedented. I obviously don't know that. That's pretty cool for one farm to have
Yeah, no, their success has been, I mean, unbelievable. And even when you get past into mischief, they just, they go after, some horses that, particularly a lot of people don't think are going to be great sires. And one of the ones I was extremely high on, that they went after was my Tole, and he's been excellent, and. A lot of people said, well, sprinter. And I didn't agree with that. I thought that he may get horses that get a distance of ground, and even turf. And so far he's been doing that. He's been kind of overachieving in that area, not in my opinion, but in a lot of other opinions. What's your take on Justify and a Triple Crown winner in the US siring an Epsom Derby winner in the UK?
Yeah, he's been better than I thought, very honestly. You knew he would be good, but he's even been better than I thought. I didn't see him putting up the numbers that he is and the number of winners. And you're right, he's had a number of good runners over in Europe, certainly, as well as the States. But yeah, his horses seem to be very versatile. They'll run on the grass, they'll run on the dirt, they'll sprint, they'll do a little bit of everything. I big fan of Justify. My eyes certainly get a little wider when I see a Justify baby, as a firster, as running in a race that I'm looking at.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Now, what about the other side of the coin, broodmare sires?
Yeah.
What are some of the broodmare sire lines that you look for?
Yeah.
And let's keep it to the ones.
Yeah, broodmare sires. Keep it to the ones what, John? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
That have that precocity, win early, that people can cash tickets on early.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Munnings is one that really has, and I don't understand why, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but really has a proclivity of throwing good fillies, good females, and not that. He would have, that his colts don't run. They certainly do, but it's strange how his females horses, his fillies, run so well. So he'd be one that I'd say I always look at. You mentioned it on your show the other day. Curlin has a lot of females, so he really becomes a broodmare sire too. But you mentioned on a show the other day, his horses don't get better until much later. So from a 2-year-old perspective, they're kind of hard to deal with because I love them. I mean, they're certainly well bred, but they're not very precocious, right? They're not typically up to speed, even though he's as good as there is on that side.
Will we be seeing Saratoga baby columns from the Edgeman this year?
You better believe it. And it's only 30 days away. So it's exactly 1 month from today that those doors open. 4 weeks and 2 days, if you want to count it that way. It's July 11th. And I can't wait. I'll be honest with you, John, from a handicapping perspective, I don't do as well at Saratoga as I do many other tracks. I don't do as well there as at Belmont. Of course, it's kind of been a mess with Belmont this year, having to run it, at the Big A, and then of course the festival at Saratoga, with their construction. But or Churchill Downs, frankly, or Keeneland, I don't do as well at Saratoga. But it kind of brings me to a point that I want to share is I always pick one horse, never pick two. And I certainly don't pick 6 horses in a race or what have you. I really feel it's important to pick one horse, take a stance, and that's the one that I'm on. What I want to say is that I always pick a horse in every race that I cover because it's the sporting thing to do. It's the right thing to do, right? But sometimes it's kind of a tepid choice because I'm having to pick one, and it's maybe a race that I wouldn't play. So, what I want to share is that, my opinion, what I'm trying to do is be a purveyor of information. I'm trying to share as much good information, as much meat. And you do this too, John. You always share your opinion, but you always stress that it's important for the player to make their own decision. It shouldn't be John's decision. It shouldn't be Shane's decision on who that person bets. I think what we try to do is give them information and allow them to think about things that maybe they hadn't thought about before, right? So I'm always trying to share as much information. I get pretty excited when I do have a winner. We all do, right? Because I'm wrong way more than I'm right. But I'll always pick one horse. I'll always stick to that one, and really stress giving good information. And if your listeners have any suggestions for me or would like to see something different from me, I'm flexible. I just want to provide your audience. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, John. You give me a chance here to kind of get my word out. And, I'll be forever grateful for that. But, I want to help the folks that follow you and follow Past the Wire. And, I do it my way, but I'm flexible. I mean, if somebody else wants to see something different and make sense, I'm happy to change things up a little bit. Let me know how I can best help, I guess is what I would say.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate the kind words, and we feel that we're fortunate to have you, and you bring an awful lot to the table. Now, what would you say if you wanted to walk somebody through?
Yeah.
You went to the racetrack up at Saratoga or at Keeneland, and you've got somebody there the first time.
Yeah.
And they're like, how do I bet, Shane? What do I do? And you tell them, hey, I like to bet the 2-year-old races. This is what I do. You open up the racing form, give them the cliff notes of attacking a 2-year-old race with the 2-year-old edge man. You
got it. I definitely say, I would definitely say start with the trainer. It definitely starts with the trainer. To your points earlier, it doesn't end with the trainer, but it certainly starts there, in my opinion. Of course, this is just what I think. So I think it starts with the trainer, and then I look to the sire. That's a huge piece of it. Is it a precocious sire? Is it one that's that's successful with firsters? And then I'm going to look to the dam side. And like I said, that dam is almost always overlooked, or certainly often overlooked. But two things on the dam. What was their racing career like? And if they were unraced, that's okay.
Right.
I'll say their racing career. I really focus on their 2-year-old racing career, right? Were they precocious? They may have earned $500,000 by the end of their run when they were 7 years old. And that's wonderful. It's probably really, it's a good mare that brings in that kind of money. But if it didn't run, or certainly if it didn't win at the age of 2, I might move it down a little bit in my handicap. The other thing is what foals of racing age has she thrown? And again, how have they performed in 2-year-old races? Not only overall, but how did her babies do at age 2? The next thing that I'd look at are workouts. And like you said, fast workouts are good, but I look at trainer patterns and how does a trainer, what does a trainer do when that horse ultimately becomes successful? Are they working them a bunch of times before their first race? Are they just, keeping them real fresh and only working them 3, 4, or 5 times? A lot of different things to look at workouts other than time. However, I do look at time. I know a guy, him all better than I do, but Bruno is the master of workouts. And of course, he can look at how their ears are, held and their tails swooshing and so forth. And I'm working on that. But, the other thing in workouts, I look to see who the barn's working with today's runner within company. Is he working with an older horse, a good older horse, or at least a good 2-year-old that we know?
Yeah.
Or is he working with dogs? And I think they try to put the good ones together, right? So I look at that. The last two things I mentioned real quick are auction results, John. I look at that pretty closely. And again, it's not just the higher number that it sold for, but I look for where that horse was ranked in its class. In other words, if it's kind of a lower tier sire, it's not, that horse is probably not going to sell for $300,000. But if it sells for $150,000 and it's a $5,000 sire, and it was the first or second highest in its class, that's a big deal. And then the last thing I would throw out, and obviously it assumes that the horse is run before, would be the past performances. So, those second time out horses oftentimes will pop. There was one last week. Didn't run overly well. His name was Slang, ran at Churchill. It was his second race. The first race, it kind of, got beat by 10 lengths, but it came back and looked like a champion. So that second time out angle is a big one too. And, you mentioned earlier, kind of learning from your mistakes, because we all make them, and we make them every day, frankly. And I think that's okay. I think the important thing is to learn from them. And in my most recent learning, if you will, is, and I know it, but I just won't. I just, for some reason, have struggled to get it to sink into this thick skull. Is that those horses with experience definitely do have an advantage. I think it's fun to bet a firster, so you'll see a lot of my picks being firsters. But in reality, it's important.
I tend to agree with that.
You got to move those horses up.
Yeah, those second time starters do have a tendency to jump up and run, much better second time out with that experience under the belt. Let me ask you this: do you get turned off, so to speak, or get leery when you see a horse that has a sire with a stud fee of, say, 50 or 75,000, and the horse sells for 30 or 40, or you see an Into Mischief who's 200,000 and the horse went for 100 a quarter, and they're betting him because most people are just seeing Into Mischief and he's getting bet off the board, but you look a little closer and you're like, gee, he went for less than the stud fee. How do you view that? Do you get reservations when you see that, or you just say, you know what, a lot of them turn out to be runners anyway?
I do get reservations. I don't throw it out by any means, obviously, right? But you're always moving horses up and down in your equation, right? That's going to move it down a little bit for me, especially if it was at a 2-year-old sale that it didn't sell well. Now, if it was a weanling and it didn't sell well as a weanling, it's just had that much more time to heal or improve, or whatever the heck was the problem when it sold for a relatively low amount. It does catch my eye. And again, that kind of comes in that stack rank when, the horse that you're describing there might be, I don't know, 80 or 90th out of 100 or 110 sold. So that stack rank is at the bottom of the stack rank for its class, right? Again, you never throw something out, or I don't throw something out for one angle, if you will, typically in a 2-year-old race, unless it's pretty egregious, but it definitely moves it down for me, John. I think I would rather see a horse from a lower tier sire sell for the same amount as a real high tier sire. But again, that's one out of 50 different things I'm going to look at. But it's a good point that moves it down.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And I think one of the biggest takeaways is when you're looking at these 2-year-old races, there's no end all be all. There's no hard fast rule that you got to follow. There's always intangibles.
Yeah, well, you're exactly right. We talked about kind of what I call the core component that we mentioned before, but you do this as good or better than anybody, in my opinion, in the industry, very sincerely. But that's to watch race replays. Obviously, it assumes the horse has run before and it's not a firster. But I think it can be extremely advantageous to watch past races if the horse has run one, to see how he reacted. Was he between horses? Did he get stuck on the rail? Did he look uncomfortable? So watching race replays, I think post position is a big deal with 2-year-olds. Even the owner and the breeder, to me, is an intangible in this space. It's certainly not a be all end all, but there's definitely some owners that are trying to win early because they need that cash flow. And you can look at past history on owners and better breeders, odds movement, that type of thing. Those are intangibles. There's really a lot of them if you open your mind to 2-year-olds. And you're on them, John, but a lot of people won't go that deep. Again, to kind of keep going back to that phrase you used early in the discussion here, you got to go deep, and it's fun doing it.
Yeah, and a lot of people misread the money. Money can be very telling in 2-year-old races, but you have to really know how to read it. When you have a horse, from certain connections with certain bloodlines and certain riders, he's supposed to be 8-5, and he's going to be 8-5, regardless of whether he can run or not. If he can really run, he's probably going to be 3-5. You know what I mean? So you think he's 8-5 and he's taking all the money, and well, not really. The horse that's 7-2 getting bet into him, or 3-1 getting bet right into him from more obscure connections, is the one that the board is screaming, bet that one, bet that one. You know what I mean? When everybody's betting the other obvious one. So there's a lot of times that, people misinterpret the money and how it's supposed to go and how it actually goes. Horses that are supposed to get bet generally get bet. And when they can run, they get bet even harder,
Hammered.
So, you gotta kind of watch for that. Sometimes it looks like a horse is bet and they're 8-5 and they're really not bet because they should be 4-5 or 3-5. And vice versa, so you've got to, again, like we said, you got to kind of go deep and look beyond, what's right there at the surface. If this game was what's right there at the surface that we all see, because we all see the same information, and after a while, most of us learn what it means. If it was that first glance of information that was right most of the time, I mean, we'd probably be sitting on a beach in Tahiti right now drinking pina coladas and, not trying to figure out who's going to win, the third race on Friday.
Just figure out where the next pina colada is coming from.
Yeah.
I agree with you, John.
Sure. So now who's this monster, this potential monster on Friday that you mentioned?
It's the one horse in the fourth race on Friday at Churchill, and it's by intermission. It's by a horse you may know, John. Or its dam is Lady Aurelia, and she won. She raced both here in the States, and I think she won 2 Grade 1. She won at least 1 Grade 1 over in overseas. I think one was at Ascot, one was somewhere else. And she won first out at Keeneland in April. Put up a 95 Equibase speed rating, in April, which is silly. And she's thrown 2 other foals of racing age. I'm sorry, she's thrown 1 other foal of racing age, and it was a Curlin who also won first out at Keeneland in April last year. 99 Equibase speed figure. So it's a Home Street homebred, and I mean, go no further than that. And it looks pretty good. It's out of Brad Cox's barn. Of course, he's got Florent Giroux riding her, I should say. It's silly. Pretty impressive workouts. Nothing off the charts, but this one could be a monster. It's 5-2 morning line, but it's the second pick. So hopefully it'll get off. I'll play this one down to close to even money. I typically don't go when it's odds on. I just typically won't chase them down there, but I'll chase this one down pretty far. Brad Cox, to your points earlier, gets hit pretty hard in Louisville for the obvious reason, being grown up there and so forth. People know who Brad.
Yeah, no doubt, Brad. Brings him ready.
But it's one to watch. It'll be a hell of a race. There's some other horses in there that can run though too. There's some other good fillies, so we'll see. But this one looks really exciting. I'm anxious for Friday.
Now, what's your take on? And we see this all the time, and I get amused by it. You know, if I was going to go to the sale and buy a horse, and let's say I had a budget of $2 million or $5 million, whatever the case may be, I would want to spread that out. Okay, I'd buy a bunch of horses. You know what I mean? I wouldn't go to the sale and buy, you know, one for $3 million and one for $2 million. You know what I mean? I'd rather buy 10 and increase my chances. And so many times we see these sale toppers get old as hype. Okay, never win a race. Or you'll see these babies 800,000, 1.2 million, 1.4 million, 750,000, and they're losing to a horse that went for 100 or 200,000. What's your take on that?
No doubt about it. You know, that kind of gets back to what I was saying before from a standpoint of, you know, I'd rather stack rank horses as opposed to just look at what they sold for. You know, you'll occasionally, Mendelssohn is one that comes to mind. I think Mendelssohn went for $2 million. Certainly he's been successful and certainly been a success. Why am I thinking Sierra Leone was an expensive auction horse? Maybe I've got that wrong, but yeah, no, I agree with you, John. I always like to watch those real expensive ones because obviously somebody thought something of them at one point in time, him or her. But no, I don't just put my finger on that and say that one's going to win because it sold for $800,000. I think also, you know, it may work against them to some extent, John, in the sense that, you know, these ultra expensive horses, the ones that go for $500,000 or more, they're going to be more patient with those, right? I mean, you got to be careful with those. And I think if there's $100,000, if he's running against $100,000 colt, they may train him a little bit differently, right? I certainly would. If I had an $800,000 horse, I'd be, you know, if I had a $100,000 horse, I'd be careful with him. But I do think there's a difference. You know, and some of these guys, you know, Paul McEntee is a good example. You know, he doesn't spend over 20 grand at the sales,
right?
But he'll get his horses ready to run when they're two or do as well as they can. So, you know, you'll see a lot of $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 babies from McEntee's barn that can run. He had one up that ran. I don't know if you noticed it. You probably did. Races before that, but he had one that ran in that stakes race up at Saratoga. I think it was on Thursday's card, Brereton's Baytown. It didn't win, but it was a firster in a stakes race, and you know, this thing costs 15, 20 grand. So yeah, you know, long answer to your question, but those $800 million horses or $800,000 million horses, they're cool to watch, but I don't gravitate to them. I almost gravitate away from them to some extent.
Yeah, I tend to agree. Well, Shane, you know, informative conversation. I hope people get a lot out of it. For those that are so inclined, they can find your book on Amazon, correct? Your book, we can find it on Amazon.
That's exactly right, John. Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's called Handicapping 2-Year-Old Thoroughbreds. And it's subtitled Consistently Winners in 2-Year-Old Maiden Special Weight Races. So, you know, again, it's real focused. It gets real deep, but I tried to write it, John, for not only guys like you that are ultra experienced horse players, but also to kind of beginners in this game. So, you know, it should be interesting to you if you do have a proclivity to learn about 2-year-olds in the babies. So, you know, I'd encourage you to check it out. You know, I appreciate the support. And again, I've been getting good feedback on it. So take a look.
We'll do, and I'll put a link to it in the write-up to this video.
Thanks, John.
So people could find it easily. I've read it, and I got a lot out of it, and I enjoyed it. I think it's a great read. I think there are nuggets in there for just about anybody at any level of the game. So I don't think you can
Excellent.
go wrong checking it out.
Excellent.
Jane,
Thanks, John.
a pleasure talking to you.
Thank
Our
you.
our Wi-Fi connection was not the best today for some reason. I don't know if it's on your end or my end, but hopefully everybody heard us and can hear us. And if you've got to listen a little bit hard, it's worth it because there's gold in them there hills. So that's the best I got.
Thanks, John.
All right. I'll end the recording now. We'll say goodbye quick off camera.
Sounds great.
They're off in the 2023 First Crop Sires Race. Maximum Mischief makes the lead with the most 2-year-old maiden special winners by any sire. On the backstretch, Mitoli and Omaha Beach close the gap with stakes performers from coast to coast. Vino Rosso finds his best and leads on the turn with 4 Grade 1 colts on dirt. But it's Mitoli with his 3rd TDN Rising Star, your champion freshman, leading an impressive Spendthrift Superfecta.
With new DRF All Access past performances. With one best-in-class product, you now get all 3 past performance formats. Go to drf.com and use coupon code 1FREEPP for a free single card today.
Mini, a top 10 first crop sire in 2023, standing at McMahon of Saratoga. 14 first crop winners, including My Shady Lady, winner of the $500,000 New York Stallion Series 5th Avenue Stakes, Grade 2 winner Winstock, and Stakes winner Solo Shot. Solo Mini, the 7th leading freshman sire and the only top 10 freshman sire with a Grade 1 or Grade 2 winner. He sired a $700,000 2-year-old at the OBS April sale. His juveniles sold for nearly 6 figures on average, more than 12 times the stud fee. Solomini, a controversial DQ from being a Grade 1 winner by 2-time Horse of the Year Curlin, standing at McMahon of Saratoga Thoroughbreds. Sure Bet Coffee. Put the giddy up in your cup. Pick 6. King John Stetton. It's one of the best tools in horse racing for any level of player. It's your second set of eyes, spotting troubled trips, betting angles, track trends, horses to watch and favorites to fade, 10 figs, ticket structure, and more. At Tracking Trips, you're a friend with benefits. Not a member? You must hate winning money. Join Tracking Trips now. Visit pastthewire.com and we'll see you in the winner's circle. Remember, nobody does it better.
does it better.